fact, these days there is a lot of emphasis on theories while publishing in top journals. If you send an article for publication in a top journal and they come to the conclusion that you don't have a sound theory to begin with, then regardless of how sophisticated your methodology is, regardless of what your substantive findings are, it is unlikely that the article would be accepted for publication in that journal, especially in the top journals. So theory is very important. And then the second part of my talk will be how to publish in top journals and what it takes to publish in top journals. And again, I will be using the context of the presentation even in the second part. Now, this is, again, the context of this is the paper that I also presented yesterday, which is a longitudinal model of continued information system usage and integrative view of 4 mechanisms underlying post-adoption phenomena. And I'm going to present this, though, with a very different lens, which is, I'm going to present this not in terms of the substantive focus that I had yesterday, but in terms of as a general approach to theory development and testing. Now, before I go further, let me say, what is not theory? As I've talked to many doctoral students all over the world, including in the United States, there is a misconception about what is theory. Typically, what researchers do is that up front in the paper, after the introduction, they will develop some kind of diagram which depicts the process they are trying to explain or model, then have a series of constructs, and then say this is the evidence supporting this construct, here is the literature supporting this construct, here is the literature supporting that construct, and so on, and that is my model. And then they claim that that is theory. But that is not theory. There are at least 2 issues with that approach. I mean, yes, you may have a diagram, and yes, you may have documented the evidence supporting, empirical evidence supporting each of those constructs. But there are 2 issues with that, and one issue is, of course, why those constructs and why not some other constructs. That is one issue. And the second issue is why, if you're claiming that this variable has a direct impact on that another variable, why not a mediating effect or why not a moderating effect? It doesn't answer those kind of questions. So that is why such work is not, it may be a framework of some kind, but it really is not viewed as theory by the top journals. So I want to mention that because there's a lot of misconception about that, and I serve as an editor myself of a major journal, and I saw the editorial boards of other journals. And then as I mentored many doctoral students and visited many schools, universities, and interacted with many scholars, there seems to be widespread misperception about this, that if I do have some kind of a diagram with some constructs and arrows connected, and if I can show the support for each one of those constructs, then I've got some theory, and that really is not theory. So I want to clarify that up front. Now, I briefly went through some of these yesterday, and the ones how many people were at the talk yesterday? Okay, so a lot of you, some of you are not, so I will just maybe go into a little bit more detail. So talk about a little bit motivation of the study, the research model, methodology, data, research findings, contribution and implications, and then spend more time publishing in a top journal. In terms of the motivation for the study, here the purpose of this study was to explain continued usage of an information system, which was a student portal. And in the context of service innovation, it was a service innovation because this student portal enabled the students to just log on to this one portal and accomplish really any and everything that they might possibly want to do in terms of matters related to the university, registration, payment of fees, dues, obtaining information as to what's going on in the university, general information about the weather, about the university town, which is Madison, Wisconsin, where this particular university is located. It's a it's a significant university town. And then, of course, information about the US and even global information can be obtained from that one portal. And the question we are trying to address, as I mentioned yesterday, is that what causes continued usage of new technology once it has been adopted? And up to this point in time, the focus in information systems was in terms of initial adoption of technology, and the theory that was being used was the technology acceptance model, the TAM model. And of course, initial adoption is critical because unless there is initial adoption, there can be no continued usage. So that is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition. A lot of people adopt technology and then they discontinue its usage. And that, of course, doesn't help the managers. So from a managerial standpoint, it is critical that there be continued usage of technology. And that behavior is not well understood, and it's more complex than initial adoption. And only recently had effort been devoted in the information system literature into what causes people to continue to use an information system. And people had started proposing something, but still the phenomena was looked at primarily from a cross-sectional viewpoint. And there is an issue. There is an issue of trying to explain continued usage. When you're trying to explain behavior over time, and you conduct a cross-sectional study, which is really a study at one point in time, then obviously it is very limited in terms of trying to explain a phenomena over time. To explain a phenomena over time, you have to take a longitudinal view rather than a cross-sectional view. And the simplest, of course, longitudinal design is that you examine, which is of course a bare minimum, but it is relatively simple to do so, examine 2 different points in time. So that's what we did. We tried to, subsequently we have done another paper where it is a 3-wave rather than a 2-wave. And then of course in some other contexts, when you have got scanner panel data, which is available over multiple time periods, you can look at many time periods at a time. But this particular case, we have a phenomena that is looked at 2 different points in time.